Good evening. This is Goldy, aka the talking head in one of the secure locations. It's Wednesday, October 20th, 2010. Remember, most importantly, I rant so you don't have to. While up on the East Coast this past month, I ran across a friend who stated to me that he thought I was depressed. And he thought this rant was a further spiral down the depression rabbit hole. Let me be honest with you. In getting to the heart of these matters that we discuss here and in between rants, it is depressing to see how screwed up the system is. You have to be depressed when you see the large hole that we're all at the bottom of. One of my friends also said that it did not appear that I have any faith. Well, they're right and wrong at the same time. By doing this rant, which is extremely deep and complicated, as well as with me reaching a certain age, I've come to realize that there's not much time left. I just mean in my life. In comparison to 20 years ago when I felt relatively immortal. I've spoken about politics since I was an early teen. I argued with ignorant, not unintelligent people all the time over what I'll call shallow subjects, Republican versus Democrat, etc. What we have here in this rant and the discourse surrounding it is now giving me a sense of optimism. If you're just going to say Obama is wrong without delving into the reasons, which reasons we have learned exist in both parties, I'm going to walk away from you. I don't have the time or the energy, and I just don't give a flying freak about you. But for those of you that want to delve deeper and avoid message words and phrases, you can join me in the optimistic hunt for some solutions. And believe me, there are enough of you out there that I love talking to and truly appreciate for your criticism, critical and nonpartisan thinking. So I have faith and hope, actually, because of this rant. It is about depressing topics, however, so it looks like everyone really is right on what they have seen in me since I began this thing. Also, I love it when people tell me what I need to do with this thing. Get on the radio, dumb it down, make it clearer, make it more general, make it more partisan, make it less partisan. I appreciate all of what I need to do with this thing. Let me summarize what I'll be talking about today. I will talk more about our rant discourse. I will talk about the current state of Texas their proposal for an amnesty for lawbreakers and the disincentive that it creates. I will talk about the Austin Community College's call for expansion of publicly funded college education. I will talk about foreign PACs and corporate imperialism and the same old structural regulatory defect. I will talk about the failure and future failure of Obama's new oil drilling regulations that will do nothing and create further disincentives for the oil industry. I was out with a friend from the West Coast a couple days ago, a Democrat. He called a Tea Partier actually what we'll say, the TB word. That's how I'm going to refer to that slur word. So instead of calling somebody a Tea Partier, he called them the TB word. And I'm not going to say that word because it bothers a lot of people. I told him that this was a message word, and when you say that message word, it stops all discourse. Yesterday, I related that story to my Tea Party friend, and he stated something that seems very important. He said, when we strip away all of the messages and all of the group promotion, we see that there are a few of us that absolutely agree on some things. And these are from opposite ends of the political spectrum, or as I like to put it, they transcend the political spectrum. Don't you want people to ask you, where are you on the political spectrum, and be able to honestly answer, I'm not on the spectrum? I sure like saying that. Let me talk about how deep we go on this show. I had the discussion with my Tea Party friend months ago about where was the Tea Party when George W. Bush was in office. He and I now agree that it doesn't matter for our purposes. We argued months ago about where the Tea Party got its funding and where MoveOn.org got theirs. And we realized it just doesn't matter. Those are what we call shallow topics. Jesse Ventura just brought up that first argument with regard to the Tea Party. Where were they with regards to George Bush? But he's missing the point. The Tea Party has energy. Neither of the other parties do. So we will hold our noses and align with everyone that agrees on the points and structural defects that we want to change. I don't care if the Tea Party is pro-life or racist. It doesn't matter for my purposes. Once you have this particular epiphany, you will see why so few grassroots organizations survive when the bureaucracy builds up behind the first issue, into groupthink, only perpetuating the bureaucracy. Remember, I've pointed out that MoveOn.org is a democratic organization, and they're sending me emails right now about get together or do phone banks for the Democrats. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to sign their petition for a constitutional amendment overturning the case Citizens United. The best thing that ever happened for the anti-surveillance crowd that was silent during Bill Clinton's administration was the election of George W. Bush. The best thing that ever happened for small government Tea Partiers who were silent during the George W. Bush drunken sailor spending spree was the election of Barack Obama. Blaming those people for their past silence is useless, stupid, and counterproductive. Use who you can, who has the energy and agrees with your issue. I was reading the Austin American-Statesman on October 14th, 2010, and I read an article that the Department of Public Safety is proposing an amnesty for drivers who have outstanding violations, and they can get a 90% discount by paying something under the program, some small amount, 90% discount. If they pay something on their outstanding fines. Apparently, there are $1.1 billion of outstanding fines under this program. In 2004, the legislature approved surcharges on top of the fines of up to $1,000 per year for driving without a license, drunken driving, or driving without insurance. The state has done a similar amnesty program for people who have not paid for their tolls on the tollways. Without opining on the stupidity of the surcharges, I guess that's an opinion, I will opine on the stupidity of this disincentive to have a license, get insurance, or not drive drunk. I think we've all figured out that humans react and act to incentives and disincentives. What possible incentive is there for people that read this thing to get insurance in the future? Just wait long enough and the state will forgive the fines. It's cheaper than buying insurance. What a bunch of absolute idiots. Eliminate the surcharges, okay? Maybe that's a decent argument. Eliminate the surcharges since no one is paying them anyway. And just continue to enforce putting people in jail if you pull them over and they have outstanding unpaid fines. How hard is that? It's what I call personal responsibility. It just seems pretty dumb. I received an email from a friend which proves my basic point about radical ideas to get to the root of a problem, like education. Goldy. I have to say, I still think your argument about abolishing public education is beside the point. You're looking at it as welfare for parents, but it is really for all of us because we are better off with an educated society. You can talk all you want about what irresponsible people should do or that poor people shouldn't have kids, a questionable position. But there will still be poor parents, both irresponsible and responsible, and we will still be better off giving their kids a basic education. All right, that's his quote. Nothing personal, but he is missing the point and making my point at the same time. He uses the message word welfare, as in welfare for the parents, which it is. And it is something that people having children depend on and are incentivized by in their decision to have children. He says it's really for all of us because we are better off with an educated society. I've said that our society is not being educated at all, and we don't even know what to educate these kids for. We certainly don't want English majors coming out of college with $120,000 worth of debt and a $10 an hour job at Walmart. He says there are irresponsible parents, which is exactly my point. We need to make radical changes in people's irresponsibility and the incentives and disincentives that they perceive for having children. He says that we are better off giving their kids a basic education. Right. Well, we aren't doing that now. And we don't even agree what a basic education is. But I think we could probably do it in 1 or 2 years and then just charge the parents for babysitting for the rest of the years that we keep these kids out of the workforce. That's my radical idea. Okay? He's kind of scraping at the surface of arguing against it. Now that I've responded, I hope that he listens and sends back a response as to what we're supposed to be teaching these kids. And how do we incentivize parents to understand that they're going to need to raise their kids It's their responsibility. It is not ours. Okay. In today's Austin American-Statesman, there's a classic example of how we have not looked at the deep structural issues in education. I've said we should abolish all public education, all student loans, all tax-favored status to people who are going to get pregnant tonight. Okay, not the people who got pregnant last night, just future pregnancies, okay? I say this so that I will get responses that will make people think about what we are trying to train these kids for, as well as let these future parents understand that they and not society are responsible for educating, feeding, clothing, and housing these humans that they bring into the world. Here's the editorial. This was an editorial, and it kind of makes me sick. That's how it goes. When it opened its doors in 1973, the expectations for Austin Community College were rather modest. As its middle name implies, it was a community effort to offer students who needed either a financial or academic boost a shot at higher education. Its campuses were hand-me-down buildings either vacated by or shared with the Austin School District. Its faculty was mostly part-time, people sharing knowledge they gained in their respective fields with the students. It was an instant hit. ACC's initial enrollment was a little over 2,000 students. 2 years later, that was in 1973. 2 years later, the enrollment had reached 7,061. Students kept coming, and today ACC has 41,602, according to preliminary figures. If ACC were a business, it would point to that eye-popping growth as a testimony of its product's quality and price. By the way, during the dot-com boom, many of those companies that are no longer with us pointed to the eye-popping growth of hits on its website without profitability as a sign of its business acumen. Okay, sorry, back to this. Its success means that it has to grow as demand for the product grows. When first launched, it was not known just how big a contribution ACC would make to the Austin economy. The institution has become a regional economic engine and could be an even bigger one if voters in San Marcos, Hayes, Bastrop, Elgin, and McDade school districts vote to annex themselves into the Austin Community College taxing district. All right? It's an economic engine because it's in a taxing district and they take tax money. The community college has proven itself repeatedly since its founding 37 years ago. A vote to approve expansion of the ACC taxing district into San Marcos, Hayes, Bastrop, Elgin, and McDade would be mutually beneficial. Students get an education, just say that phrase, whatever the hell that means, and the communities will offer employers a trained workforce. Walmart. Opponents raise concerns about the added tax burden, but students who live in those districts and commute to an ACC campus for a higher education they otherwise might not get pay more in out-of-district tuition. This doesn't make any sense. I'm just reading what they wrote. Students living inside the ACC taxing district pay $42 a semester hour. Okay, that makes sense. Texas residents who live outside the district pay $150 a semester hour. So we don't subsidize those people that come out, that are from outside the district that come in. We only subsidize the people that are inside the taxing district. What the communities get back are opportunities for the residents to take a first step towards a higher education degree or take a class for the sheer joy of learning about something that interests them. It's true that not every student who walks through the doors is going to graduate with a 2-year credential. ACC's graduation rate is 25%, about average for community colleges. Oh, then it's okay. But then community colleges don't cherry pick students to maximize the odds of success. Community colleges, where about half Texas college students are now enrolled, don't guarantee success. They guarantee a chance at success. As an institution, ACC never has been content to bask in the glow of its own glory. It keeps looking for ways to make itself glow brighter at our expense. Voter approval of the ACC tax district expansion into the San Marcos, Hayes, Bastrop, Elgin, and McDade school districts will offer those students a chance to reach their full economic potential. That's not only good for them, but it's also good for all of us in the long run. An investment in their future is an investment in ours. What in the F are they saying? I cannot believe this editorial. It has about 20 BS message crap items in it. I mean, read this thing next week when I send the email out. You won't even believe it. It was penned by a 3-year-old. 20 years ago. Not even today. I mean, seriously, what are they saying? If it were a business, well, it isn't. It loses money as a babysitting farm. It requires taxpayer money to stay afloat. 25% graduate. With what? What jobs are these people getting when they get out? And if you can't tell me the answer to that, the ACC needs to be abolished. Just go to the library and read some classics. Look up words you don't know on Wikipedia or in the dictionary. Listen to the rhetoric at the end that is pure unadulterated bullshit. Voter approval of the ACC tax district expansion in the San Marcos, Hayes, Bastrop, Elgin, and McDade school districts will offer those students a chance to reach their full economic potential. That's not only good for them, but it's also good for all of us in the long run. An investment in their future is an investment in ours. Investment in what future? An English degree so you can text properly? Which they don't anyway. A math degree so you can figure out the sales tax that's calculated by the cash register at Walmart? If the registers go down, Walmart goes down. My God, I renew my call. Defeat this measure at the polls and defeat all measures that call for any increased spending in education until we figure out what we are doing. My God, I haven't seen Waiting for Superman. I'm going to my head's going to explode when I come out of that thing. Guaranteed. I guarantee it. I'm going to do it this weekend. And it may not be on a detox because I don't want my head exploding. Seriously. Okay, hang on. It's water. Getting back to my main fixable issue that corporations are not people entitled to free speech in the form of unlimited campaign contributions to political campaigns under the Supreme Court case of Citizens United. I've previously talked about corporate imperialism and the fact that corporations are now global in comparison to the good old days when what was good for Exxon was good for the U.S. and vice versa. It's not that way anymore. The U.S. is just a market for the multinationals, and they lobby that way with money and jobs, job promises to the people they lobby. We've heard a bit of campaign rhetoric out of the White House and how the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is taking dues from foreign corporations and donating to political campaigns with it. It sounds like a red herring from Obama, because it's certainly a red herring as far as the arguments that are coming from Republicans. They're able to point to it and say, those dues are not. Okay. Washington Post, October 17, 2010. An article entitled, PACs Linked to Foreign Companies Legally Donate Millions to U.S. Campaigns by Dan Egan makes my case in a more nonpartisan campaign message type of way. And I'm going to read this to you. It's going to take a little while, but I couldn't paraphrase it well enough, okay? I just have to read it. As Democrats and Republicans spar over whether foreign money is polluting the midterm elections, a simple point is often overlooked. Hundreds of foreign corporations already play an integral and perfectly legal role in American politics through their U.S. subsidiaries. Political action committees connected to foreign-based corporations have donated nearly $60 million to candidates and parties over the past decade, including $12 million since the start of 2009, federal contribution records show. Top donors in this election cycle include PACs tied to British drug makers GlaxoSmithKline and AstraZeneca, which together account for about $1 million, Belgium's Anheuser-Busch InBev at nearly $650,000, Credit Suisse Securities at over $350,000. The donations must come from U.S. citizens or residents, and they make up a small fraction of overall political giving. Nonetheless, the role of foreign companies and their U.S. subsidiaries has become particularly sensitive in this year's midterm campaigns, which have featured widespread voter dismay over the economy and eruptions of anti-foreign rhetoric from both parties. Democrats have made a campaign issue over speculation that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is using foreign dues to help pay for a $75 million pro-Republican ad campaign, a charge the organization denies. White House advisor David Axelrod, appearing on CNN's State of the Union on Sunday, attempted to shift the thrust of the criticism to the more general issue of undisclosed donors, another red herring. But neither Democrats nor Republicans have drawn attention to PACs linked to global companies, a source of campaign funds that benefits both parties. That benefits both parties. That's why you don't hear about it. U.S. subsidiaries of foreign companies generally favored Republicans during the George W. Bush administration, but have shifted the tilt of PAC contributions to Democrats since Barack Obama took office, according to a Washington Post analysis. Overseas companies have a vigorous lobbying presence in Washington, and many of them played a prominent role in derailing Democratic campaign finance legislation that would have limited their U.S. political activities. Again, that was some legislation that could be overturned by a Supreme Court or a future legislature. That's why I say legislation is not the way to cure these big problems. The bill, blocked by Senate Republicans, would have classified more multinationals as foreign entities and, in early drafts, could have prevented them from having PACs. More than a dozen foreign-connected companies, including subsidiaries of Germany's BASF Corp and Switzerland UBS Americas, registered to lobby against the legislation, records show. The legislation came in reaction to a Supreme Court decision that eased restrictions on corporate political spending and raised the possibility that foreign companies might claim similar rights. That issue lies at the heart of unsubstantiated allegations that the Chamber of Commerce may be commingling foreign dues with political funds. The business group denies the charges, saying that they are part of a White House-led smear campaign. Democrats have ratcheted up their attacks on Republican candidates and business groups for supporting policies that they say encourage multinational companies to move jobs overseas. Red herring. Republicans and their allies have responded with campaign ads alleging that the Democratic-backed stimulus bill had the effect of creating jobs in China and other countries, a claim disputed by the Obama administration. Red herring. Despite the bluster, contribution records make clear that both parties benefit from contributions from U.S. companies with roots in other countries. One of the leading contributors to federal candidates among U.S. subsidiaries is BAE Systems, the Arlington County-based arm of the British Defense and Aerospace Company, records show. BAE's PAC has given nearly $600,000 to candidates in this cycle, with 55% going to Democrats. Top recipients include Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat from New York, whose state includes many BAE employees. Surprise! And Senator Richard Burr, Republican of North Carolina, a member of the Intelligence, Armed Services, and Veterans Affairs Committees. Surprise! He writes the legislation. Quotes, the PAC supports candidates who demonstrate a commitment to the defense and security of our country, as well as science, technology, education, and math, said Clark Dumont, BAE's Vice President of Communications. You know what? That actually doesn't bother me. I've said before, we're the ones that have to set the rules. They just operate under them. Legally. We have to set the rules and enforce them, okay? We don't. Back to the article. Officials with other subsidiaries declined to comment or offer general defenses of their U.S. political and lobbying activities. Steve Goldberg, a U.S. Vice President for BASF, said the company's PAC assesses candidates on the basis of their positions on key issues, relationship to BASF sites, and standing on committees or congressional leadership positions of relevance to our business. I'm okay with that. The PAC is bipartisan and regularly supports candidates of both parties. I'm okay with that too, Goldberg added. Major global healthcare companies are well represented at the top of the contributions list, including Novartis Corp of Switzerland, Bayer Corp of Germany, and several British companies. Defense and energy companies such as Rolls-Royce, Siemens, and EADS, the maker of Airbus jets, also rank high. I'm fine. The rules governing U.S. subsidiaries of overseas corporations are relatively clear. No foreign nationals can contribute to company PACs, nor can they be involved in deciding how the money gets allocated. Employees of U.S. subsidiaries are as free as any other citizen to participate in politics, including contributing to their employees' political committee. That's what we need to change. Foreign-based companies employ more than 5 million Americans in a range of areas such as healthcare, defense, and finance, including tens of thousands of Chrysler employees who now work for Italian automaker Fiat, according to federal data. Millions of Americans work for foreign-owned corporations, and I don't think anyone thinks they should have less rights than anyone else, said Stefan Pasentino, a GOP campaign finance lawyer at McKenna Long and Aldrich. But some unions and campaign finance watchdogs have long complained that the system does not do enough to guard against allowing foreign interests, including corporations with U.S. employees, to wield inordinate influence in Washington. They say an American employee in charge of a foreign-connected PAC will be well aware of the parent company's political and economic views and will act accordingly. The bottom line is that those individuals are likely to be much more interested in the health of the global economy than in the guy who just lost his job in Zanesville, Ohio, said David Donnelly, director of Campaign Money Watch, which favors public financing system for elections. He's not differentiating between them donating to the PACs and them as individuals just donating $100 to a candidate, which I'm saying is still should be allowed under the system that I want, following my constitutional amendments. Okay. When Democrats unsuccessfully pushed this year for the Disclose Act, which would have required more disclosure of political donors and tightened restrictions on the political activities of foreign-based corporations, those companies were particularly alarmed by proposed language they said would outlaw their U.S.-run PACs. Their complaint led to early changes in the bill brokered by Representative Chris Van Hollen, Democrat of Maryland, and Senator Charles E. Schumer, Democrat of New York. But the Organization for International Investment, a lobbying group representing U.S. subsidiaries of foreign corporations, so there's a group that represents these U.S. subs and PACs. They remained opposed to the gist of the legislation, according to those involved in the debate. The bill was twice filibustered by Republicans in the Senate. Nancy McClernand, President and Chief Executive of the U.S. Subsidiaries Group, said portions of the bill would have unfairly penalized U.S.-based companies with overseas parents. She also decried the growing political rhetoric aimed at foreign companies, including those with U.S. operations. It's very disappointing that in 2010 some politicians are still trying to do this us versus them that no longer exists. McClernand said, "We will be heading down the wrong path if we continue to put flags on these companies. Other countries are turning away from that." All right, well, I find that article comical, and I'm hoping that having listened to my past rants, you see how the defects come out. We're heading down the wrong path if we continue to put flags on these companies. We're not really trying to differentiate foreign companies. I'm trying to differentiate corporations and any other groups and saying that they should not be allowed to give money to any politicians. I'm saying that politicians and regulators cannot go to work for these companies. Therefore, they will have more of a detachment on their regulations, and I'll get to it here in a second. But it's just funny to read this article, and I'm really hoping, because now I can read these kinds of articles pretty clearly and see all of the messages that are in there. All of the look over here. Look at the monkey, as my neighbor used to say. Look at the monkey. Look over here. Look at this distraction. Let's not look at this deep structural problem that no group or corporation or union should be allowed to give money to a politician. Completely makes for an unequal playing field. Unequal. All right, I'm trying to point out the types of loopholes that exist in the major structural regulatory defect that needs to be fixed. The Disclose Act, as it is called, and which failed anyway, is a BS method of acting like you're trying to fix the problem but not actually doing anything. Let me reiterate what needs to be done constitutionally, and I'll do it clearly. Number one, corporations and groups are not people entitled to free speech rights. Overturn Citizens United. Number two, no revolving door for regulators and politicians into the companies that they regulate. Forever. Number three, term limits for congressmen and senators. Number four, maximum contribution of $100 to any campaign and from individuals only. And to which I now add, due to the governor's race in California, you can only donate that same $100 to your own campaign. Since Whitman has spent a reported $120 million of her own money to her campaign, on her campaign. Now, Arianna Huffington has been calling for public financing of campaigns. But I have to ask, why would we use public funds, of which we have none, to fund these campaigns? Just restrict what you can get from other people and restrict what you can donate yourself. I'm not sure why I don't want candidates to donate their own money. I only just started, it was when I was talking to my California buddy when he was saying how much money she had put in. But it seems to smell bad that only rich people could run under my limited fundraising system. So I'm open to changing and adding to the constitutional amendments that need to be there. And let me hear from you on that one. I think it's pretty interesting because we don't only want rich people running, we want citizen politicians. So even if you're really rich, Who cares? It just means you don't have to work. I mean, that one we can't get around. Somebody who's rich can run for office and doesn't lose their job. But maximum you can put in is $100. That seems legitimate because it seems like there's a bad smell there, that only a Michael Bloomberg could really run for president, or only a Whitman can run for governorship of California. Okay, I'm going to move over to my commons problems, regulation problems. I also want to reiterate my dream and desire that the BP oil gusher had continued for a much longer time than it did. Then maybe something truly could have happened to change the system. In the New York Times, October 15th, 2010, was an editorial entitled "Focus on Safety in Offshore Drilling," where they missed the main point as well. The editors say that the Obama administration is imposing new rules, which I've talked about in past rants, that a company must prove that it can contain a blowout. Each rig will have to be inspected by government engineers, and that there are redundant blowout systems before they get a new permit. There are other requirements in there as well, including cementing the well. That's one of them. These rules are the same ones proposed in May, are only rules overturnable by the very people that put them into effect, as well as any new administration that will come into power in 2013. Think Sarah Palin. Quotes, "Congress has yet to approve an oil spill bill that, among other things, would increase penalties for future spills and tighten environmental safeguards. The least it can do is help the Interior Department do its job. The spill and the new inspection regime have pushed the department's resources to the limit. It has shifted employees from other duties to review the new deep water applications, as well as ongoing requests from shallow water drillers. Congress included an additional $23 million for regulating offshore drilling in a spending bill passed last month. The administration has asked for an additional $100 million to hire new inspectors and engineers. That would be money well spent." Close quotes. All right. I have to ask the obvious question. How can that money be well spent? Why aren't the users paying the cost of the inspections? That will go away when Sarah Palin is elected. Why are we, the taxpayers, paying these costs? Why wouldn't the companies pay for the inspections and pass that along with the cost of the oil extracted, therefore creating incentives for the company to save money by not getting fined? I'll tell you why. Because the companies wrote these regulations. They lobbied to push the costs on the taxpayers. They promised jobs to senators, wink, wink, and jobs to the regulators, nod, nod. There's no incentive for the government to save any of our money. This is a travesty. It's a complete batch of stupidity, and you, the taxpayers, are responsible for this bad method of regulation, as I stated in BP number 1. Turns out I was right. Taxpayers are responsible. You, the taxpayers, in the New York Times cheer the Obama administration for continuing the same regulated, writing the regulations. But in fact, we're continuing to commonize the costs of the oil industry, where we, the taxpayers, pay some of their costs, and they continue to reap their privatized profits. This is what the Tea Party rightly complains about, bad regulation. But the Tea Party misses the solution and the main point. Fixing the system of regulation, not the regulations themselves. The idea of changing the regulations themselves is a red herring. A trigger phrase of someone ignorant of the real problem: we have too much regulation. A trigger phrase of someone ignorant of the real problem: we have too little regulation. If you hear any of those, you know what you're dealing with. Ignorance. Sorry. Tell them to listen to my rants or watch the email that has the transcript on it. Okay? All right. Moving on to something different. On Fox, on Monday, October 15th, an ex-Huckabee consultant was asked in that little 8-box thing, what is a conservative? They were talking about election, the current election that's going on, so it wasn't a generic question. He said a conservative is someone who believes that an individual can make better decisions than government can. Excuse me. Specifically, Such a definition of conservative relates to the voters in the upcoming midterm election and to health care. That's what he said. I'm sorry, and I was yelling at the TV. I'm sorry, I just don't get it. Are you saying that someone who wants to have an abortion can make a better decision than government can? Just how do you speak out of both sides of your buttock at the same time without cracking a smile? I thought Barry Goldwater, a real conservative, believed in no foreign wars and was pro-choice. Napolitano said it this past weekend. Don't tell me there's a Republican running today or Tea Partier, self-proclaimed. I'm just talking about the people that are running. They can even say he or she believes in one or both of these truly conservative principles. No foreign wars and pro-choice. By the way, Christine O'Donnell, who's running for the Senate in Delaware, in her latest debate did not know that the First Amendment creates the separation of church and state. I know that I'm going to get a lot of crap about this, but it doesn't matter whether she knows what is in the Constitution. All right? Go ahead and start sending those emails and tell me I am full of crap on that. Think about it. It does not really matter whether she knows what is in the Constitution. When I took the bar exam, I memorized a whole bunch of stuff. And as soon as that bar exam was gone, I forgot everything. I know how to look things up. Now, that's not particularly her excuse, but in any event, again, I'm going to say it one more time. It does not matter whether she knows what is in the Constitution. It matters that she can read. It doesn't matter that she knows. Jay Sekulow, who I've talked about before, he sends emails out and he runs the ACLJ, is a constitutional litigator. He's actually litigated at the Supreme Court. And he continues to try and get prayer back in schools and does not believe in the plain words of the Constitution. He's also against the mosque at Ground Zero. He's also saying that the Arizona immigration law's prohibition on racial profiling will keep the law from being unconstitutional. All of which are wrong. And he is a scholar, okay? So which do you prefer? A real smart guy who violates the Constitution with impunity, wrapped in the cloak of Christianity? Or a not so smart woman who might be able to learn or not fall into the lobbyist's trap? I hate to say it, I have more hope for the woman. Can't believe I said it, but that's what this rant has done to me. Okay, by the way, I have an idea. Until we can figure out how to pass these constitutional amendments so that donors do not get disproportionate amounts of our tax dollars and commons benefits, let's not create any more income streams in the form of increased taxes or different types of taxes or any increases of taxes, okay? If we can't get a handle on keeping how people are going to spend, we cannot give them more money. That's going to become one of Goldy's truths. That's all there is today. I want to thank our sponsors, all of which support this form of conversation, but not necessarily the content of the conversation. PianoByAngelo.com, Angelo Limbesis, who teaches and plays keyboards all over Austin. ZitaDesign.com, Z-I-T-A Design.com for all of your decorative painting needs. She can make anything look like anything. AustinAreaPlumbing.com for all of your Austin plumbing problems. TicoAdventureLodge.com, a small hotel in Samara, Costa Rica. CNC Surf School in Samara, cncsurfsamara.webs.com. La Vela Latina, great sunset restaurant in Samara. Ambar Tequila at www.santospirits.com, an extremely smooth tequila. And another cool little hotel in Samara, www.villablanca, B-L-A-N-C-A, samara.com. Thanks and God bless.